Hi Fernando, we are at the European Commission for the blog. Can you please tell us a bit what is it you do here? What are your responsibilities at the SCIC?
Well, I work in SCIC. I work in a unit, which is Unit B1, which is responsible for the relations with universities. It's the unit which coordinates pedagogical assistance, study visits, grants, and there is a chapter, a part of the support we provide to universities, which is e-learning, which is virtual classes, the speech repository, SCIC Train. So the three e-learning tools that SCIC manages, and I'm responsible for that in this unit.
And virtual classes, because many students maybe know what they are, but could you explain a little bit what is it you do with these virtual classes? What kind of classes is that?
Yeah, virtual classes, for our purposes here, are conference interpreting virtual classes. So classes that are organized through video conference. So video conference is the technical support of these classes, and we offer a series of different modules that go from conference interpreting, practical sessions in consecutive and simultaneous for the different phases of the learning process. We offer seminars on self-training, for instance. We offer trilateral virtual classes, for instance, with other international institutions. So we have a menu, and we organize those pedagogical modules and run them through video conference. These are virtual classes in this context.
So it must be great for students all over Europe and the world, having a chance to, being trained from Brussels. I suppose people really like these kind of opportunities, right?
Well, that's for students to say.
Yeah, well.
But, they are not trained from Brussels. We are not, we can't replace, and we don't want to, replace the trainers, the university trainers. Those are the ones who train the students. We just give a particular point of view. Our point of view is the point of view of future bosses. Actually, we want to be able to hire those future conference interpreters, but it's also the point of view of a trainer, because in SCIC there is this strong tradition of in-house training. Of course, the stage doesn't exist anymore, but the stage, the fact that there was an in-house training module during lots and lots of years in SCIC, made it that there is a strong know-how of conference interpret training here in SCIC, and there are still people who go very often in pedagogical assistance, who have a strong experience of training conference interpreters. So we have a know-how to offer. So our point of view when we see those young students and those future interpreters is double, is international organization and future possible employers, but also the training perspective. And I think that this double perspective is actually one of the added values of these virtual classes that we offer.
And students, what do they say? Do they like it? The pressure, maybe I don't know if it's stronger.
Well,
what do they say in general?
The pressure is strong, and I find a pity, the pressure is strong, and lots of times students feel they are going to make a consecutive or a simultaneous in front of people from Brussels who can be their future employers, and I think it's a pity, because a virtual class is not a virtual test.
Good point.
We actually also offer a module which is mock test, where we mock an interinstitutional test.
Oh, that's great.
And we show the students how a deliberation goes on. What are the points on which the deliberation, which the deliberation covers, and how is the procedure on the backstage? How do the panelists evaluate performances and so on? And there, the students are tested. But in classes, in the other modules, I mean, it's classes. So we try to guide the students, to give them, useful tips. But no one is there to judge the students, and our trainers are very conscious of the fact that. Of the moment where we arrive and in which phase of the learning process the students are. So our trainers aren't going to to evaluate a performance let's say in January, some student who is on an intermediate level, let's say, thinking of a final product. Our trainers are very conscious of of intermediate objectives and of the whole process. So yeah, I find it a pity that, you're right, students are very often stressed, but they really shouldn't be, because
What can you tell them to convince them that this is an exercise that can be good? That, I mean, this pressure, I mean, we have pressure at work, but I mean, somehow you have to cope with it, and it's a very interesting experience. What can you tell them to relax somehow?
Well, one thing I tell them is exactly what I'm saying to you now. I used to say that in the beginning of the classes to remind them of that, and to tell them that even if some of the colleagues who are in the virtual class can be one of the future examiners of that student when he or she presents himself or herself to the interinstitutional test, that may happen. Those colleagues are not there in that capacity. These colleagues are there as trainers, as experienced interpreters, and so the first objective is not to judge, but to guide. On the other hand, I'm also conscious of the fact that from the point of view of the universities and university trainers, the control of nerves is also an important point.
Yeah.
And virtual classes are a good occasion to teach. I can understand that.
Of course.
But I find it a pity that virtual classes can be judged or evaluated only in terms of control of nerves and cold blood and all that. I find it really a pity, because it can have other purposes and other dimensions.
And to finish, one last question. How do you see training in the future? Do you think trainers or teachers are going to disappear? Do you think we're going to do everything online?
I hope not.
You hope not?
I hope not, really.
So how do you see it, future? How do you think it's going to be? The same kind of thing? Do you see new technologies being used? Or
I hope that there are new technologies being used, but these technologies should, support and help face-to-face teaching. I don't think, in particular for conference interpreting, that you can live without face-to-face teaching, and that everything can be 100% virtual. I think virtual classes and other virtual tools can be, a good support and a good supplement, a good, additional means of conveying certain ideas and certain practices. But I really think that the perspective should be blended training and not, 100% virtual. But that's only my personal opinion.
Okay, well, that's a very important personal opinion. Thank you very much, Fernando. A pleasure, and let's see what future brings.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
It was a pleasure for me too.